All right, so 2024 is almost over. We're almost to 2025. So, like I always do, I'm going to end off the year with my worst movies of the year list, worst movies of 2024. We're also going to do the best list, which isn't as long, but whatever. We're going to start off with that. The worst list, I mean, I saw some really bad stuff this year. I've given more of my bottom rating to movies this year than I have in any of the other years I've been doing this. I mean, just wow. I mean, we had three Sony Spider-Man spin-offs in one year. I mean, that goes into it. So that's part of it. But man, it was like, man, I was just kind of blown away by certain movies where I was expecting them to be bad or mediocre, and then they turn out to be like, wow, this is getting on my worst list. So we'll get to it. We'll get there. But let's start off with the best list, like I always do. So I have five this year, and number five is Dune 2, which is kind of surprising because I didn't really care for Dune 1, the first Dune movie, Denis Villeneuve Dune movie that much, lacking character development and the pacing and things like that. It's gorgeous, but it definitely had some writing issues. I think Dune 2, I think, is definitely better and definitely won me over. I like the whole religious manipulation. I like the conflict between Johnny and Paul. I like the conflict between the more religious Fremen and the Fremen that are like, this is obviously BS. The ones that see it for what it is, which is Bene Gesserit manipulation through superstition and religion. I like all of that. I thought it was really powerful, especially by the time I got to the end. All the fighting is great, especially towards the end. I like the final fight Paul had with what was his name, Fade Routha. I like that. I like that fight a lot. Great fight choreography, hand to hand stuff. Great. But what I really liked about the ending was the story being what it was the whole time, which is the whole false messiah thing, and Paul playing into it and manipulating these people for his own aims, and then causing a holy war as a result of it. Right, like the ending was so powerful because it felt like a instead of a triumph, it was a tragedy. That's what it felt like to me. Whereas like this is not good. This is what Paul didn't want, but he ends up leaning into it and kind of letting it happen as the false messiah he is. I mean, it was so powerful, the story. Number four is Inside Out 2. This could have easily gone higher on my list, but like I said in the review, even though it has such relatable, well written aspects of it, bottled up emotions, anxiety keeping you up at night, and using your imagination to make you go through all the ways that things can go wrong, embarrassment about first meeting someone that you're kind of a fan of and talking too much and being kind of awkward and having embarrassment from it, and the audience having secondhand embarrassment watching it. There's so many good and relatable aspects to this when it comes to the new stuff for Riley. Even though I thought the first movie could have just been the first movie, and I still think the first movie's better. The second movie did a lot of really good stuff. What kept it from being as good as the first movie and kept it from being higher on this list is it just didn't hit me emotionally enough, right? It really was more like, what friends, wanting to have friends when she goes to high school and things like that, having fallouts with her friends. It's a lot smaller when it comes to emotional stakes and things like that than the first movie. I mean, full on stealing your mom's money, buying a bus ticket and running away like that. That's huge, right? And it's just way more powerful. Plus, you had the whole thing with Bing Bong and things like that. It gets to me emotionally, right? Like I cry in that first movie a lot, pretty much every time I watch it. And the second movie didn't really have that, so that was the thing that was holding it back. But it is really clever, really well written, and I really liked it a lot. So number three is Deadpool and Wolverine. Yes, it is a nostalgia movie. Yes, it's contrived. A lot of the story is, and fan servicey and things like that. Certain things happen to where it's like, well, this doesn't need to happen really story wise. They didn't really justify it enough, but it's happening because it'd be cool. Like when all the other Deadpools are there and they fight them, things like that. Also, I didn't say like some of the effects on Wolverine, especially in that scene. I didn't get to mention it in the review, but real shoddy. But I really like Deadpool and Wolverine's dynamic. And when it comes to the nostalgic stuff, I really like that it was a farewell slash love letter to Fox Marvel. As a person who grew up with those movies, it felt special. It did. It didn't feel like it was just nostalgia. It felt like it was more than that. It felt like it was that final goodbye to a pretty big part of my childhood as we move forward in the MCU. When it comes to like the X-Men and things like that, Fantastic Four. I like that, and it's funny, right? Even though there's definitely problems, the Wolverine and Deadpool are way more invincible than I've seen them be. Like there's not even the illusion of stakes other than when they're going up against the villain, Cassandra Nova. And the whole thing is kind of messy with Logan. Logan died, so that universe is gone. It's clever when you look at it as like the Fox stuff ending and moving on with the MCU, but when you actually look at it in the actual context of these movies, it doesn't make sense for Logan to even be part of the same universe as Deadpool, let alone to be like the anchor thing and Logan dying, which is supposed to take place in another year, affects his overall universe. Like, there's plenty of stuff that you can pick apart that doesn't make sense in that movie. But I thought there was just enough clever stuff and the dynamic with Deadpool, Wolverine, and the other characters, but especially those two. Um, I think, and the nostalgia feeling special and actually having a touching element to it. I thought it elevated it above something like Spider-Man: No Way Home or some of these other nostalgia-driven fan service movies. So number two is Civil War with Kirsten Dunst. I forgot the director who directed it, but it's basically like almost like a apocalyptic movie of America if states had seceded for whatever reason. They don't go into it, which is the problem. Um, Seceded, and they form I think it was the Western forces, and they actually try to like pretty much take over the United States, and they're actually winning. Like, they're about to take out the president and everything. And I like that we did the way that we see it is through the journalists, right? I mean, being a journalist is legitimately dangerous, not just because they put themselves right there in the action, like during firefights, they're behind people who are shooting at someone and getting shot at back, but also because I guess the press is also being targeted too by the president and things like that. It's very fascist. Um, uh, the tension is great. The best tension I've seen in any movie this year. Where like the scene with Jesse Plemons, where they have like a mass graves and he's questioning them, trying to see if they're the right kind of American before he potentially kills them. I mean, the main characters always feel like they're on edge. They always feel like their lives are in jeopardy. And the movie looks fantastic. The way they kind of built it to be so like apocalyptic, and there's random explosions off in the distance and firefights and things like that. It felt really effective, especially in the third act when it gets really crazy and really violent. It really has an impact on you. The issue with that movie is that they don't actually tell you enough context as to what's going on. So they'll throw out things like, "Oh, the president disbanded the FBI." It's like, why? You're not going to tell us why? Okay, let's move on. And I think the movie is lacking the depth that it really needs without having that backstory. Because without having that backstory, as tense as it is and as good as it still is, I think it's fantastic still. It doesn't quite reach where it could, and actually have like some kind of point or message because it doesn't give you the background. Finally, number one, the best of the year, at least my best of the year, is Wicked. And I did not expect that to happen. I did not expect this movie to be as good as it was. Cynthia Erivo is fantastic as the character, but also obviously with the singing. She's a fantastic singer. The way she hits these notes, it's breathtaking. And I really like the dynamic between Glinda and Elphaba, where they start off antagonistic, and I really like the musical number that they did when they were really going at each other in school. And there's a lot of energy in it, just like with all these song numbers, like the choreography with the other students and that just really worked. But even when that antagonism turns into friendship, I really like that, right? And Glinda is kind of annoying with her fake activism, but she's still kind of charming in a way. And I don't know, it just the songs are great, the characters are great, and it just mainly just kind of works. I didn't like that it was a part one because I feel like we kind of got what we needed with her seeing the wizard being a fraud, and turning into the Wicked Witch that we know of. Um, and Jeff Goldblum was fantastic, pretty much perfect as the Wizard of Oz. There's certain things where I was like, okay, this could be a little bit better, but for the most part, it's just such a fun time, and you love the characters, you love the song numbers that are all great, just about, and I don't know, it blew me away. I did not expect it to be that good, but it was fantastic. Let's get to the worst. Honorable mentions. We only got two here, which is Red One and Borderlands. Both those movies, I could see them kind of being as bad as they are. More so Borderlands than Red One. As bad as they are, I felt better about them than I did these movies. Like those two movies, I think got closer to a higher rating than these ones did. Especially as we go further down on our list. But that's the honorable mentions. We're not even going to fully go into detail there. My reviews are up. You can see what I thought about those. These ones are the ones we really got to get into. So, number 10. Venom 3. Venom, what was it, The Last Dance? Who cares? Yet another Venom movie. It starts off with him being sent back to the Sony, Spider-Verse or whatever, after he got sent to the MCU for no reason. And then, for whatever reason, just to kind of give them something to do, they're on the run because they're wanted for the death of that police officer from the second movie that nobody cared about. So they're trying to go to the Statue of Liberty, and they also want to, like, I guess, blackmail a judge that can get you out of a potential murder charge or wanted in connection with a murder. Okay. And that guy turns out to not even be dead, but whatever. Then they get attacked by this creature that was sent by Null. Null is the creator of the symbiotes. Why he's never been mentioned before is because we weren't making this movie yet. That's why. He should have been mentioned before. Should have been mentioned probably in the first movie, but whatever. And Null just kind of sits on his throne and does nothing. He just sends the creatures after Venom and Eddie. Venom and Eddie, they have to stay out of their full symbiote form, where Venom is like fully covering Eddie, because that's how they can see the codex or whatever it was that was in him that Null needs to get free. Them being Eddie dying and being brought back to life by Venom in the first movie now makes them a codex or something like that. So that's why he's going after them, and they have to run away, and they end up in Vegas, and hijinks. It's mainly hijinks between the two, or they get attacked, and then they have to deal with that. They see the lady from the first and second movie from the store. I think her name was Mrs. Chen. I think that was her name, but she's randomly there winning a bunch of money, and she's like, "Dance with me, Venom." And so Venom takes over Eddie and starts dancing with her for no reason. It's like already choreographed, it seems like, too. They're like in sync, where even Eddie's like, "Wait, what's going on?" And even though they're not supposed to do that, because that's how the creature finds them, they still do that, but they get captured instead of the creature just straight up killing them. It's really just that there's this other family that doesn't really matter. They get a ride with them at one point. They're trying to find Area 51 because Area 51 is being discontinued or something. So they're like, "Oh, we can see aliens." So they took all their life savings and decided they want to go see aliens. You don't care about that family at all, other than there's kind of a touching moment between Eddie and the son. But other than that, you don't care about them at all. And there's kind of a fun sequence where they sing, but pointless. And we got Chiwetel Ejiofor as this other character that doesn't matter. You have this other scientist character who has a full-on backstory and everything that looks like shit. The cinematography is horrible, where her brother dies and she survives after they get struck by lightning. And that's pretty much setting up her getting this lightning-based symbiote towards the end. And they keep it open to where maybe, hey, well, she might get her own movie or pop up in another Sony Spider-Verse, Spider-Man spin-off movie. Nobody cares. Nobody cared about that character. People only care about Eddie and Venom. And you have, this is spoilers, I don't care about spoiling shit in this video. Venom ends up dead to defeat these creatures. Not to defeat Null. Null doesn't do shit. He sits on a fucking throne. He barely looks up throughout the whole movie. Venom dies, and then after this has been lazy as fuck, all three of these movies have been lazy. They want to have like an emotional moment for you to be like, oh, they have that Maroon 5 song playing, Memories or whatever. So you can feel bad for Venom and Eddie splitting up. When knowing good and well if Venom 3 made a good enough money, made enough money, or if they decided to continue the Sony Spider-Man spin-offs that they've been doing with the villains and stuff, that Tom Hardy would be right there again. They'd find some way to be like, I know Venom, but you still around? So, yeah, wasn't Venom supposed to have died at the end of the first movie and that didn't happen? He just had him at the end. What's to keep them from doing that again? Number nine is Night Swim. It's Blumhouse just kind of throwing out a horror movie that is cheap and has very little writing or meaning to it at all, and no real point. This family, they moved into this place with this swimming pool where clearly something's going on. There was a little girl that they say drowned in the pool, but the pool takes people away, so there was never a body for that little girl. So nobody would assume she drowned. People would be like, "Oh, this is a disappearance because where's the body?" But whatever. They buy the house, and the father starts getting taken over by the swimming pool. It's mainly just jump scares. It's like how do you make a swimming pool scary? You just have characters get into the pool. They see somebody outside the pool. They get out the pool to see what's going on. The person's not there. It happens over and over again. Or they'll see like a weird, ugly creature in there, or whatever. But the pool's mainly taking over the father to where he almost kills that kid when they had their pool party, which was probably the best part of the movie, but still, it's nonsense. And then you find out that the pool used to be like a magic spring or something, and it takes away people to then heal someone else or improve somebody else's life, where like it's almost like a sacrifice. And so that's what happened with the little girl, and this little girl, her brother, as a result of her being taken, was cured of his illness, and he became successful and all that stuff. So with the father in this being an ex baseball player who got injured, and the water is making him better, you would think that the water would be taking someone else as a sacrifice for him, right? Like, and controlling somebody, but the water controls him. It's healing him, controls him, and then almost kills him when he almost kills that kid. When he almost drowns him, because he almost drowns too. So it's like, okay, this doesn't make sense. And at the end, the father gets taken away, and instead of the son, I guess at some point the swimming pool is going to take the son away. And there's no they just move on. Like, characters will just, I guess, disappear from this pool, and I guess authorities don't try to figure out what happened. You can have a family member just disappear, and there's no investigation. Cops aren't involved. We're just moving on. It's a really stupid, lame ass movie. It's like, well, somebody had the idea, like, oh, well, we need a horror movie. What can we make into a horror movie? A fucking swimming pool. It's like, okay, how do we do it? Who cares? Just keep the budget low, and hopefully we'll be able to make it back plus more. All right, so number 8 is Rebel Moon Part 2. I didn't get the chance to put Rebel Moon Part 1 on my list last year because I didn't see Rebel Moon Part 1 until after I'd already made that list. I believe I saw that movie in January. I didn't end up watching it till then. Well, I can make up for that by putting this movie on the list. So, both that first movie and this second movie, right, pretty much show just how bad of a storyteller that Zack Snyder is, where they're clearly just, aping from so many other things, especially Seven Samurai and Magnificent Seven. I mean, Magnificent Seven is pretty much a remake of Seven Samurai, but you get what I mean. Like, it's just taking that as like a overall outline where the farmers are being terrorized by, in this is the Imperium or whatever. And so they go off to get warriors to bring back to defend them. And so they were getting them in the first movie. Didn't develop the characters, didn't do anything, and it seemed like they defeated the villains before they even have to come back. But they get there to get paid, and obviously the villains are back. And even the main villain, Noble or whatever his name was, he was killed by Korra. He's back to life, and he's coming too. So it's basically an entire movie that is supposed to be the third act in the climax for the end, for what was the ending of that first movie, or should have been. So it's even though he does, like, he's going to do an extended version. I guess he did one for part 1 or whatever. This feels like it's all one movie, and for whatever reason it was split up into 2 parts, and both parts aren't good. So the characters are poorly developed to the point where in this movie, just in order for us to know them or their backstories at all, they have to just kind of rattle off their backstories one night at a table. They don't have any chemistry with each other, barely. They barely have any time to really form a camaraderie with each other. Barely, like there's fleeting moments, but that's it. You barely know them. You get the backstory of Korra, where she was Balsarius, her adoptive father, killed the royal family, got her to kill the daughter, and then he blamed it all on her. And it's like, well, you're clearly aping from Infinity War with Thanos and Gamora, where he actually does care about her and things like that, makes her his adoptive daughter. Um, but it's questionable because you thought nothing to betray her and blame her for the royal family's death, but you let her go. When she was able to get away pretty easily, like she just ran off. She took a gun, yeah, but she mostly just ran off. So it's like, okay, what are you doing with that character, and why does he have that ugly ass fake beard on? Same thing goes for Carrie Elways with that. Um, it's just a lack of storytelling. It's really just the fight. It's a climax that's stretched into an entire movie, and it's the farmers learning how to fight, and then fighting and helping fight back against Noble and the rest of the soldiers in the Imperium. And the fight scenes aren't that great. Some of them are pretty good, like Korra going through with that lightsaber thing. But the one with Nemesis, I'm shocked I remember her name, with the two lightsabers or whatever. It's real slow. The choreography's not great. You have the other characters running down the field with just blaster bolts going past them, which is lame. And there's like, okay, so there's no stakes at all then. Okay, cool. That robot, the Anthony Hopkins robot, turns out to be really powerful. He gets on the battlefield and he's like taking out people, which the effects weren't all that great. But it's like you didn't do anything with that character, so this isn't much of a payoff, right? Like you barely did anything with him in the first movie, and then he's just kind of standing around with antlers in the second one, and then he comes in to save the day. It's like it's pointless. Gunner ends up dead just so that there can be some consequence to what's going on here, but you don't care at all. The fight with Noble is like, why did Sar fight and defeat Noble? He's not any different really. So what does it matter that I'm seeing her fight him at the end of this movie again? Anyway, and then we're setting up like, oh no, the daughter that you killed is actually still around, is still alive, and it's like, well, Jaman Hansu, if you knew that, why didn't you say anything before? Why didn't you do anything about it? It's like that doesn't make any sense. But hey, we have a goal for the next movie that nobody cares about, and mainly nobody will even probably watch. It's lame. Number 7 is Trap. M. Night Shyamalan's Trap. It is a nepotism vehicle for his daughter, who's a pop star, who is the pop star in this and actually does make music. It's an advertisement for her, and she can't act, but hey, it's his daughter, so he's gonna make her really important to this and have the pop star involved and everything going on. I mean, that's mainly what it is, but we have the main character who's, I think he was the butcher. He's a serial killer, and it's the whole idea is they know he's there at this concert with his daughter. How's he gonna get out without them knowing? And how he does is that he just does things. He's able to get out from, with his daughter and everything, and go mess with things, get key cards and things like that, and get lucky, get on the roof, get questioned, and then just be able to just be let go. So it's just him getting lucky over and over and over again. There are cameras there, so at some point people would see that this man's doing all this, and he would still get caught even if he got away. But he finally, is able to get backstage with this pop star, and he's like, "Hey, I'm the serial killer everybody's looking for. You're gonna get us out of here." So she actually goes back to his house with him, meets his family, and is able to do a live stream and get them to find the guy that he's got in some place, because for whatever reason, I guess the guy's face wasn't covered the whole time, so he knows that he's in like a blue building or a place with a blue door or something. So within minutes, one of her fans, is able to find that place and get the authorities or her family or whatever to go get that guy. Within minutes, the guy's gone off the the live feed that he's got. It's like, God damn it. He's able to just put on a cop's uniform and get it, take the limo. I don't know why he would take the limo. He's taking a really high profile person, honestly, where he could just get away because they think he's still in the house. But no, he takes her, so M. Night Shyamalan's daughter can still be involved in the movie. And then he's able to just get out, change clothes and get out of the limo and leave her there when everybody surrounds the limo, which obviously they would. That's why you don't take such a high profile person in a limo. And he's able to just get away that way. He gets back home, has like this conversation with his wife. His wife is the one who left the receipts at his safe house, or the house that he was doing things in. And that's how this whole thing got started. And It's like, really, like you that justifies this entire operation that you found a receipt. All these people suited and booted and ready to go at this place, grabbing random people because you don't have that good of a of a description of what the guy even looks like. Telling all the employees about it, knowing good and well at least one of them is probably going to yap and compromise the whole thing. I mean, the more you think about it, the worse the movie gets. The dialogue is horrible, like it is normally in M. Night Shyamalan's movies. Characters are talking to each other in ways that are just completely off and odd. Even just him talking to his daughter. I saw somebody point this out that he talks to his daughter like she's way younger than she actually is. It's weird and awkward. Even just the way he talks to his daughter, and his daughter has this issue with this other girl that they don't really go into detail about. It's it's horrible. It's trash. I was like, man, I try to be nice to M. Night Shyamalan. I try to be fair. I'm always fair anyway, but Knock at the Cabin was on my best list last year. I was like, okay, I'm gonna give you a chance. Like, we'll see. And I didn't know that the pop star in it was his daughter and that it was a nepotism vehicle. I didn't know. I didn't know that going in. I didn't know till after the movie because I was like, I gotta figure out who this person is. I gotta figure out why she's so important. Like she must be some random pop star or something that's not really an actress, but yet she gets to do all this even though she can't act. No, it turns out it was nepotism. All right, so number 6, and this is where we start to get to the really, really atrocious stuff. Stuff that blew me away at how bad they are, and how bad the writing is, things like that. Every movie from this movie on in the list got my lowest rating. So number 6, Argyle. So so Argyle is a poorly written mess. I didn't expect it to be just as bad as it was, even though I was hearing bad things. I was like, okay. I mean, from the trailer, I mean, maybe it's bad, but it doesn't look like it's that bad. It's Matthew Vaughn. I've heard of him before. I've seen some of his other movies. It's like it can't be that bad, right? This is horrible. I mean, we have the Argyle sequences where Argyle is this spy from these books that this author writes. I think her name was Ellie. And so she writes these books about this guy. He has this weird haircut and everything like that. And those sequences, yeah, the effects are bad and it's real cheesy and things like that. But it's like, okay, that kind of goes along with it being a fake, fictionalized, like espionage novel, right? So it's like, okay, I can go along with that. So we go to the actual real woman, and people are like, hey, your books are really accurate to certain things that are happening. Are you a spy and things like that? And then she ends up meeting Sam Rockwell's character, who actually is a spy, and she keeps seeing Argyle and him because she's associating her spy books with the actual spy stuff that's going on in front of her. Right, it's already a weak plot because it's like, okay, you're going after an author because her books just so happen to be like accurate to real world stuff of what's going on with your secret organization. That's dumb, but it gets so much dumber, right? Like you find out that her parents are actually the villains and things like that. It's like, wait, what's going on here? The main villain, played by Bryan Cranston, is her dad. It's like, wait, what's going on? So it turns out that Argyle is actually R. Kyle, which is Ellie's actual name. I think it was Rachel Kyle. And she turns out to actually be a real spy, and she's the spy that she's writing about in her books. That's why they're so accurate, is because they're accurate to things that actually happened to her. Sam Rockwell's character is the John Cena character from the Argyle sequences, but yet she still was seeing Argyle in him, which now doesn't make sense. But the big thing is that her parents were the villains. Her parents, they came and got her when she got into some accident or something, and she lost her memory. And so they used a laptop to brainwash her into thinking that they were her parents. And then so for 5 years, they pretended to be her parents, right? Spent time, resources, really pulling this off. And doing all that on the off chance that she writes where the master file of all the things that they've been doing, all the bad, like evil things that they've been doing, is in her last book in this series of spy books that she's writing. It's like, how big of a long shot is that? She could have gotten her memories back at any point, turned on you, but they kind of do a total recall thing where like she, I guess, was actually evil and actually was trying to get the master file for them. So the idea is maybe if she gets her memories back, she will be the way that she was before. It's like, okay, there's so many lame reveals in this. Like there's a character in the Argyle sequences that got killed, And so that character is actually real in the real world. So she wrote to Ellie, hey, you should involve this in your books to bring that character back. And it turns out to be the way that she actually survived. And she ends up using that to, because she's being forced to shoot Sam Rockwell's character. So the idea is that you shoot a certain part of them, and then if you stop the bleeding within enough time, they'll survive. But then he's like up and doing things right afterward. Like that still doesn't make sense. But that was a reveal that needed to be explained. Whatever. There's a lot of exposition. There's a lot of explaining of this shit that doesn't work. That's just dumb and it's just written badly. But you have these characters, these names, these are Samuel Jackson, things like that. Like these are names in movies, giving these shitty ass lines, explaining this shitty ass script. It's so bad. It is embarrassing watching them do it. I just couldn't believe it. It was just a reveal after reveal after reveal. The dialogue is horrible with them having to explain these reveals. All right, so number 5 is Mea Culpa. Tyler Perry put out quite a bit of movies this year, so of course at least one of them is going to make my list. It really doesn't know what it wants to be because it's a crime thriller kind of with this investigation into this guy. I think his name was like Zaire or something like that, who's a like an artist, and he's believed to have killed his girlfriend. There was blood all in his loft, and they found skull fragments and things like that. And he's going to Mia, played by Kelly Rowland, to defend him. Obviously, it's more of a kind of an erotic thriller when it comes to that because clearly, even though she's married, even though she's having marital problems, and she's trying to keep him at bay, clearly at some point they're going to end up sleeping together, right? At some point that's going to be a part of this, and maybe he actually did it, maybe he actually didn't, and so there's going to add some drama in that, but the story makes absolutely no sense. It makes no sense, and then it has a reveal that makes it even worse. They can't find this girl's family, right? Like they can't find her family anywhere. Like she had a private investigator friend looking for her family and trying to figure out anything about her, and they can't find any information at all. Like she died, and just it was like she was never never real or something. It's crazy that this guy, he's going up, he's going to trial like that, like in the next week, and he's way more focused on whether Mia will admit that she finds him attractive or not. It's a crazy story. It's like with these details, at first it's like, okay, lock this brother up, all right, I guess he's going to jail. But as more details come out, it's like not only do I don't not think that he's going to jail for this, I don't know how he was ever charged because with this many holes in what's going on, not being able to find the family or where she's from or anything like that, like she just didn't exist the minute she got after she got killed. There's no body, things like that. She ends up sleeping with, I think his name was Zaire, the guy she's representing, which she shouldn't have never been representing anyway, because the person prosecuting him is her brother-in-law. So obviously there's a conflict there, but the judge is okay with it because this is Tyler Perry world. So she ends up going to get away and ends up on a beach and things like that. I think she was in the DR. And then she just comes across the girl because the girl's actually alive. She's there. So it's like, okay, whose skull fragments are those? That never comes back. So she can't catch the girl, right? And so she goes back home to talk to the brother-in-law and everything. He says, hey, come on back and we'll talk about it. And turns out he set all this up because her friend, who's married to the brother-in-law, actually slept with Zaire at some point, and so this is his way of getting revenge. And then also the mother had cancer and was going to chemo treatments and everything. Turns out that was all fake just to gain sympathy, even though there was medical bills that she showed to the husband earlier on. I guess they were making fake medical bills and everything. It's just like there's so much of this that why would you do all this? Like obviously people would it wouldn't work, but obviously people would be like suspicious of what's going on here. And it's way worse for your career to find out that you were faking that your mother had cancer than not having the sympathy votes that would come from it. It's nonsense. Then the family ends up attacking me, and she ends up killing them and things like that. He ends up getting off. It's nonsense. It's Tyler Perry nonsense that it's like he's never seen a crime thriller before or never seen like court procedurals or anything like that. It's like a fall from grace. It's like, don't touch this again. Don't do this again. It doesn't work. Number 4, Y2K. I just reviewed this not too long ago. It's obnoxious. I didn't care about any of the characters at all. They're all annoying. Going into with black scents and going into bad freestyles all the time and things like that. The only good scene or good part is when the technology at Y2K, the technology turns on them and starts killing the kids at that party. Other than that, like it doesn't really have much going for it. It's not funny. It's not scary. It's not like a horror comedy or anything like that. You have this ridiculous character, this stoner character with dreads, that was completely ridiculous. Didn't seem real at all. It was like a bad skit. The things that they have to do, it's ridiculous. The things that they have to do to defeat the technology and everything at the end. Where what's her name? Rachel Zegler. Her character turns out to be like a hacker type character, even though she's super popular. Right, that's the difference between her and the main character. He's not popular, and she is, even though they clearly have like something going on, even though they have no chemistry. She's gonna hack into the computer at the school where they're taking all the people because they're killing people, but then they're also taking people and putting chips in their head to make them slaves, whatever. So she has to like hack into something to fight the program that's causing it. It's nonsense. But the real big thing is the movie pretty much turns into Fred Durst's movie after a while, just completely simping hard for Limp Bizkit and Fred Durst to the point where I was like, man, did he direct this shit? Because like, wow, I guess maybe he's a producer or something. I mean, it was all on his dick, sucking him off like crazy. And I was like, dude, y'all gotta relax. Like this is really bad. Like this is embarrassing. Right? It becomes his movie. It's like, man, this is the ending of this is just it was already bad, but it becomes just unbearable by the end. Oh, it was number 3, Madam Webb. So for a while, Madam Webb was my worst of the year, and it just got overtaken. It's another Spider-Man spinoff that nobody asked for, but this time it's not a villain. It's just a character that's in the Spider-Man lore that like helps him every now and then. That can like bring the Spider-Man characters together and stuff like that. It's basically what I've seen her do, like in the '90s show. Bad dialogue, bad acting. The thing where she sees the future is inconsistent. Like sometimes she can see things but not be able to change them, and then sometimes she can see things and then be able to change them. They believe that she kidnapped these 3 girls that the villain is after. That's going to kill him in the future because they'll have spider powers that they never get in this movie. But he can find them whenever because he has this technology or whatever to find them, and then sometimes he can't find them. She's able to go around even though she's wanted, and even is able to get on a plane and get to Peru even though she's wanted. There's so much of it doesn't make sense. The villain. Villain's motivation, other than to kill these girls, what his motivation was before when he killed Madam Web's mom all those years ago. There's no motivation for the spider people and all that shit going on in the beginning. No real motivation other than I guess he just wanted the powers or whatever. He's dressed up like Spider-Man. He's evil Spider-Man for no reason, really, other than to be like, oh well, see, this is a Spider-Man movie. He looks like Spider-Man. But the real big thing is his performance is already subdued and not great, but the dubbing that they're doing for this guy, almost all of his lines are ADR, almost all of them, and it's so obvious. And that was really taking me out of the movie. But the girls don't get their powers or anything at the end. It's just Madam Web being able to like predict where things are going to happen because it happens like in this fireworks building where fireworks are kind of going off and things like that. And she can kind of make her like it's almost like Doctor Strange where she can like make her soul, I guess, leave her body or something like that. She's doing something like that at the end. The effects are bad from the beginning, from when she starts to see the future. I didn't even say anything about this in my review, but the whole thing where like they feel like they need to drop a different version of with great power comes great responsibility, and the other paramedic is Uncle Ben for no reason, and his sister's pregnant with Peter Parker. It's nonsense. There's so much dumb shit in that movie. The characters don't really have chemistry with each other, like amongst the girls and things like that. It is a train wreck, right? It is one of those where it's like, wow, this is worse than Morbius, Sony. Wow, this is kind of just what you guys are doing, huh? Like this is awful. Number 2, this is the one that I thought was going to be number 1 for a while that beat out Madam Web. People were like, wow, it's worse than Madam Web. I was like, yeah. This is The Crow 2024. I like that original Crow movie. I'd just seen it a little bit before this movie came out. And Brandon Lee's fantastic in it, and it just has that. It just has a nice style to it, 90s style to it. It's uh, supernatural retribution against some evil assholes. But in this, there's a lot more going on. It starts off with Shelley, played by FKA Twigs, I think that was her name in this movie. Starts off with her, ended up in rehab, and then Eric is just there in rehab. They form a romance immediately. They escape the rehab facility in the easiest way possible. So I guess maybe people are just always escaping. And then they have this really sappy, deep romance. And it's even though they're on the run from these people because she saw something she shouldn't have seen and all that, this shadowy group, they're still just hanging out and everything. They're with friends. Who knows who those friends are? Whatever. They're going to clubs and things like that. Like nothing's happening, right? You should probably be leaving town. Like you should be getting away, but no, they're just hanging out. And so of course they end up getting killed. And then he comes back and he's killing everybody. He can't be killed and things like that. And he's trying to bring her back to life by killing all these people. The main villain, he can whisper in people's ears and make them kill themselves, but then kill other people too. And that's his way of staying alive all these years and staying out of hell by sending them in his stead. That's about as much as you get, right? Like, he takes on proteges that can play piano. He owns an opera house where the best part of the whole movie takes place, where Eric is just killing all these people in there. But you don't really understand his organization or why he does what he does, what his motivation is. There's so much of the movie that's missing, right? You barely know Eric, why he ended up in rehab, his backstory with his family, or his old childhood home. Right? He gets like visions of his childhood home on fire and things like that. Like they kind of dip into like barely surface level shit in the rehab facility during these like group therapy sessions, but not really. It's just he's so bland. Right, like Bill Skarsgård is doing his best, but the character's just bland, especially in comparison to what Brandon Lee did originally. It's a lame ass movie, but it's barely a movie because it doesn't feel complete. It doesn't really feel like there's enough here for the story to actually play out. The score is bad too, and doesn't really fit the movie. It's boring. It's messy. The romance is horrible, and that's the main thing here. That's the main motivation for the main character, and it just doesn't work. And the dialogue is dog shit. It really is, especially when it comes to the romance stuff. Oh, you were beautifully broken. Oh, if you ever find that you can't love me, just love me harder. It's nonsense. It's just the movie is terrible. Like somebody was like, really, it's worse than Madam Web? Yes, because it's barely a movie, just like this next movie. So this is going to be number one. And of course, if you've seen the list up to this point, something's missing, right? Number one, the worst movie of 2024 is Kraven the Hunter. Once again, the thing that sets it apart from Madam Web is that it is barely a movie. It is edited so badly. It is such a mess, and it's got a lot of the same stupid that Sony decided to fucking force into Madam Web. The whole thing, like the thing with the spider people with Madam Web. In this, we have this beginning where Sergey Kraven, he ends up getting attacked by this lion. I mean, really bad too. Conveniently though, Calypso as a kid was with her spiritual grandmother and got a tarot card reading and got some magical vial of whatever the fuck to cure him and also give him powers. It's like, wow. And then so he ends up running away from home and from his father, who he can't stand, and ends up living in the forest area that was, I guess, owned by his mother's family before she died. And so he grows up to go after like poachers and things like that, and crime bosses and mob bosses or whatever. That's who he's hunting. I was like, wow, that's completely different from Kraven. So Kraven the Hunter isn't a hunter. Oh, okay. Or at least he's a hunter of crime bosses, and that's it. And actually kills people for messing with animals and things like that. It's just like, it's nonsense. And his brother's the chameleon, which is accurate in other things that I've seen, other Spider-Man things. His brother's chameleon, and the representation of that is that he can just throw his voice. He does impressions. It's like, well, that's lame. The Rhino is in this. He's not any version of the Rhino, really. He's some guy that just makes weird noises and things like that. He's a boss, but he's not respected by Craven's dad, and so they're rivals and things like that. And so he kidnaps the brother. So now Craven has to hunt him down and get him. Calypso's now a lawyer, so she has certain information he can get from her that barely ever happens in the movie. He has this person that can take him around, this pilot, and it's just to justify him being able to get to these places and do what he does. That character does not have a character. You don't know how they met. It just he just ends up in places and is just able to do stuff. There's no real hunting or him figuring things out. He's like, I need to find my brother. He ends up in a place and he starts killing everybody. And the brother happens to not be there. All right, we go to the next place. His powers are inconsistent and all over the place. He can like see things. He has like special vision where he can see things that are further away that he shouldn't be able to see. He seems invincible, right? Luckily, I mean, he's invincible, but like the people who are going after him, they have like horrible shots and can barely ever get anywhere near shooting him, even if he's running in a straight line. He can jump from buildings and be fine and keep running. It's just he just takes out people with ease, and so there's no stakes or anything, and he's able to just find out things or do things off screen and just end up in places to the point where like the passage of time doesn't make sense. It's almost like he's teleporting. It's really jarring, the editing in the movie. And then it's all leading to the climax, which doesn't feel like it has enough setup because there's not enough development of any of these characters or anything going on. Which is just, hey, the villain showed up. There's a villain that can count and like stop time or whatever and kill people. Not developed at all. Barely a character. And so they end up at his place that he's at when Calypso happens to be there too, and the brother's there. They bring the brother, and so he ends up just killing them all. And then he almost dies, but then he is able to kill the guy that can like count or whatever. I forgot the guy's name, the foreigner. And so Rhino, who has like a condition to where he went to go see a scientist, and he's able to like take out this tube and turn it into the Rhino. Like his skin starts to harden and things like that. And so they have their fight, and it's short, and it's anticlimactic, and Craven never seems like he's in any danger, just like he hasn't been up to this point. It is completely fucking lame. And, he beats the guy with ease, and it's like, okay, I guess that's it. But, hey, his brother still needs to turn into the chameleon. So once again, you have him being like, oh, I want to go to New York and met up with a scientist, just like the Rhino did. I was like, man, this is lazy. This is not Craven. Right, it's you have to fundamentally change this character in order to make a movie about him. So why even bother? Going after people who have killed animals and took their horns to sell or whatever. Like I said, he can just do all kinds of things, and he's pretty much invincible. There's no stakes. Acting is terrible. We have terrible accents, especially by Russell Crowe. It's a bad movie overall, but the editing really is messy. Like, you have to see this for yourself. Like, if you don't think this is as bad as Madam Web, like the editing alone in this movie is like, this is not a movie. This is just scenes that just got stitched together in whatever way. And even though the movie has a bunch of scenes that shouldn't be there, there's a bunch of scenes that feel like they're cut out too. Like development of the characters, of the story, of things like that. It is a laughing stock. It's embarrassing at this point. It's like, I thought after Morbius, these movies couldn't get any worse. And then you put out 2 movies in the same year that are worse than Morbius, Madam Web, and Craven the Hunter. I don't get it. And this is supposed to be the last one. It's the worst one. This is supposed to be the last one. Hopefully that's the case. It's a horrible universe. It's barely a universe. And I saw something say, like, oh no, maybe the movies aren't dead. It's like, no, Sony, it's time to stop. We all want it to stop. It's over. Anyway, that is my worst movies of 2024, also my best. Hopefully not as many bottom ratings as this year, the next year. Hopefully not, because, man, there were so many movies where I was like, wow, I don't know how this was released like this. I don't know why this movie was made. I don't know how this movie was this bad. I was expecting it to be bad, but shit, this is atrocious. I can barely get through it. Hopefully we don't have that too often or too much next year. But anyway, that's the worst movies of 2024. And yeah, we'll be back to do this again, 2025. I don't plan on quitting anytime soon. So anyway, that's it. Subscribe, and we're done.